Let's get into it. Patch 2.4 has a lot of very exciting stuff, and we're going to start with the easiest to explain. That is, of course, the ranked update. There are only a couple of things that are changing in your ranked queue. First of all, the promotion matches, which is what happens when you go from a tier to tier. So, silver to gold, they're being removed. Instead of having to win 3 matches in a row to go from silver to gold or gold to plat, you now just graduate like you would within those tiers. Like if you're going from gold 2 to gold 1, you just go up when you tick over the LP mark. That's now going to happen in between gold and plat as well. And they give a couple of reasons why. They say that people stop playing when they hit a promotion match, which is kind of entertaining. They found that promotion wins cause players to stop playing ranked. We suspect, they write, that high-ranked players feel after overcoming a difficult barrier, they're worried about falling back into Emerald and having to replay their promotion matches. So, they found that when people lost their promotion matches, they got frustrated and stopped playing, and when people won their promotion matches, they were scared of losing and having to redo those promotion matches, and they stopped playing. So, rather logically, Wild Rift devs have removed promotion matches. The other thing that is changing in your matchmaking queue is bans. I'm going to go ahead and circle where they are on the UI. At the beginning of ranked games, you are going to be able to ban 3 characters on both sides. They say it will be 3 characters due to the size of the roster, the number of bans they expect will expand in the future. The last 3 players in the picking order get to make those picks, so if you get first pick, congratulations, you got first pick, but you don't get a ban, and it will happen relatively quickly before the picking phase begins. So, you'll never have to play versus another team up. Good news for everyone. And that is pretty much all they're changing about the ranking. They also talk about how Fortitude isn't giving a clear indication of whether or not the ranked lost shield is active, which is a whole lot of words for the shiny thing that demonstrates whether or not you're going to lose your rank when you lose. And they've changed it. It's a shinier thing now. They have a new UI. And they are changing around the UI for ranking. That's about it. That's the easy stuff out of the way. Let's talk about items, baby. What's this? Hang on. What's this? I know. You don't know yet, unless you read these patch notes, in which case, I don't know what you're doing here. These items are straight up wild. They talk about how their main drive for making these new items is they want to give AD carries who are building crit something new. This is the case for a lot of crit, kind of sustained damage AD carries. You're talking about things, you're talking about characters like Caitlyn, like Ashe in League of Legends PC. They're not translating over to Wild Rift. We actually haven't seen any Ashe in competitive play. I think there was one in the Icon series like a week ago, and it was played support. So their theory is there isn't enough itemization for characters that want to build towards crit, and that is borne out by the AD carries that are successful right now. We have a lot of AP bot laners. We have a lot of lethality bot laners. Varus stands out as an example of either of those, depending on the build. So their theory is let's give people more options for crit. Starting things off, you might have known about Bloodthirster. Very simply, it's the item that gives people a ton of lifesteal. Previously, it was only kind of buildable in the top lane, but top laners didn't really want to build it because it wasn't a super good top lane item. So what they've done is they have lowered the cost, they have lowered the amount of attack damage it gives, and they have given it 25% crit. This all but, in my opinion, kills it in the top lane. It is very unlikely that a top laner will want it, giving now only 40 AD. However, 25% crit rate is nothing to sneer at, and that likely means it will find a home for what we call drain tanks, characters that want to be functional tanks because they can lifesteal, and that would be characters like Ashe, characters like Graves, if they would like to build in that direction. So, already, something getting crit. We're also adding new items that do crit. This is the Essence Reaver. It has 25% crit rate. And it's got some pretty cool passives. If you're familiar with League of Legends PC, it works similarly. The Mana Siphon will restore 2% of your missing mana when it attacks an enemy. And the Essence Flare means that when you damage an enemy with your active abilities or an empowered attack, you deal 10 bonus damage with 70% crit rate. So, very good if you want to do crit stuff, and very, very good if you would like to regen your mana. So, again, this looks like something that some of the kind of same pool of marksmen who would like to do sustained damage over the course of a fight, the characters that would benefit from the Bloodthirster because they could regen off of that sustained damage, the characters that haven't been getting a lot of love in the current meta because they're not critting and they're not drain tanking. This is similar. They're going to get a whole lot of mana back. They're going to be allowed to pump out more spells. I don't think, I as of yet, don't think any of these changes are going to massively change around how characters are played. But I do think all of these items are interesting, and I think they're going to have unexpected knock-on effects. Right now, as I'm looking at the champions in Wild Rift, as I'm thinking about the competitive meta, I don't see who this changes things for. I think the numbers aren't good enough to make anyone instantly better than who the current top AD carries are. But I do think that these are items that will have long-lasting effects that I cannot foresee right now, as somebody just theory crafting. Speaking of, here's something I genuinely don't know what to make of. This is the Solari Charge Blade, and it's also got 25% crit rate. It's got an attack speed stuff. The real cool, interesting thing is it's unique. This is a brand new item. It does not exist in League of Legends PC, but its unique passive is that every time you use an ability, it gathers a tracker called Radiance. There are 3 charges of Radiance. And every time you have a charge of Radiance, you have 25% crit rate for 10 seconds. Any attack that critically strikes expends a charge of Radiance and deals 26 to 40 bonus true damage on hit, increasing by up to 150% on low health targets. So it's got an execute, it's got crit as reward for using abilities, and it is fairly cheap. So what I'm thinking, here are my thoughts, is Senna. First of all, that's in my head. Second of all, this is going to be really useful for early game characters that normally struggle because they take a while to get online. Wild Rift has a couple of these where they are characters that are traditionally very powerful in League of Legends PC, but in Wild Rift, because the game is shorter, these characters don't do anything. I keep going back to Ashe, but her, again. I think the Solari Charge Blade is kind of interesting because it would offer an alternative for those characters. I do also want to know if it interacts with the Senna passive. I suspect it does, and if it does, I think this is a Senna buff. I think Senna is actually the character who's most affected by these changes. She might be cracked. Speaking of things that might be cracked, we got a Stormrazor. Stormrazor is an item in League of Legends PC, and it functions the same way. Moving into attacking generates energized stacks. There are a couple items in the game right now that give energized. Rapid Fire Cannon and Fleet Footwork give you energized. This builds from Kinesis Shard as well. And when you have an energized attack, the unique passive Paralyze means that your energized attacks do 120 bonus magic damage, as well as slow enemies by 75%. So useful if your enemies are building a ton of armor into you, very useful in lane. Also very useful if you, again, want to drain tank an opponent. It's an attack speed item. I would expect to see it on people that want to stay in range and just keep pumping out auto attacks. Right now, I hate to keep going back to Senna, but right now one of the big Senna builds is you go Frozen Mallet first item so that your attack's slow. And I was thinking about this and going, man, Stormrazor would give Senna a slow on her attacks And it would play with her Energize passive, which she's already building up for Rapid Fire Cannon and Fleet Footwork on some builds. So, it's a good patch for Senna mains. You got options. I don't know if they're going to be better than current builds. Senna's already kind of busted, but I think this is a very good addition to that pool. Navori Quickblades. Your critical strikes with basic attacks reduce your non-ultimate ability cooldowns by 15% of the remaining cooldown. So this is fun because of Solari Charge Blade. So this isn't an interaction. Navori Quickblades does exist in League of Legends PC, but the Charge Blade doesn't. So there's an interaction here that is kind of interesting. And this is something I'm going to theory craft basically as soon as I can get my hands on these items. Could you take a character that doesn't normally build crit, get them the Solari Charge Blade, which is only 3k gold, and then use the Solari Charge Blade to get yourself crits without building any other crit items, add in the Navori Quickblades, and just have kind of insane CDR. Kind of insane cooldown reduction. Because Solari Charge Blade guarantees you're going to get a crit every few attacks, as long as you're spending your abilities. So very kind of interesting interaction there that doesn't exist in any other version of the game. Every time you land a critical attack, you reduce the cooldown of your non-ultimate abilities. So, useful stuff. They also added some items for everybody else. This is fun. Crystalline Reflector is another unique Wild Rift item, and it's built to offer a alternative they write to the Zhonya's Hourglass, because Zhonya's Hourglass is necessary for a lot of characters if you're facing into Burst, but it is an AP-only item. It is an AP item, and if you're not a mage, then you're sad that you have to build Stopwatch into Hourglass. So, Crystalline Reflector claims to solve that. Every ability you cast grants you a stack, a mirror shard. And when that is consumed, it blocks incoming physical damage and reflects some of it back at the attacker. So for 2,900 gold, kind of similar to Thornmail, but it doesn't apply grievous wounds. And my understanding is it blocks a flat 10 plus 5 AP physical damage from an enemy champion and deals, yeah, flat 20 plus 10% AP magic damage to them. So, kind of a weird item. I don't know how I feel about it, because I don't think they're writing that it will be an alternative to Zhonya's Hourglass, and I don't see that, frankly. Unless I misunderstand something about the way it works, I don't think you're going to be able to build up enough stacks of it to meaningfully block burst damage. Because most of the time that assassins get on you, that assassins threaten you. If you think about when you use Zhonya's Hourglass, it is mid-teamfight. It is not coming into a teamfight. So I feel like the way Crystalline Reflector is going to be sabotaged is you're going to take kind of sustained damage over the course of a teamfight, and Crystalline Reflector is going to eat that up, and then by the time some burst assassin actually does get on you, you're going to be in trouble. What this does do is, as somebody who occasionally plays Malphite, it makes Malphite sad. It makes other characters like Malphite, Fizz comes to mind, who want to start fights with big bursts of damage, have to play a little more cautiously, have to poke for a little bit, wait for the engagement to happen if somebody has built it. But I will have to see how that plays out in-game. Serylda's Grudge is something that exists in League of Legends PC. Basically, when you deal ability damage, the people that receive it are slowed. That be it. It's got good damage, it's got good armor penetration, so it is useful for assassins. It is occasionally useful for top lane, Baron lane characters. But I expect you mostly to see it on assassins who want to have a little more accessibility from their burst. They want to be able to burst people and then find value immediately afterwards. And if your target is slowed, that is easier. Those are my thoughts. And we've got an old classic from League of Legends PC, Staff of Flowing Water. This is the counterpart to Arden's Censer, and it was introduced fairly recently. And one of the problems with Staff of Flowing Water in League of Legends PC balancing is that it grants you and an ally 20 ability haste and 20 to 40, based on the target's level, ability power for 4 seconds whenever you heal or shield an ally. Now, if you, and you may be spotting this already, build Staff of Flowing Water on a character that is already doing a decent amount of ability damage, then this can morph into a weirdly attack damage focused item, or ability power focused item. I think the numbers here are smaller such that it won't be a big deal, but it is interesting to me that it is coming into a meta where AP characters are a little weak. Most of the damage in the current meta comes from the bottom lane. It's very rare that you have mages doing the majority of your team's damage. Very rare that you have mid laners doing the majority of your team's damage. So, in the face of the kind of dominant lethality meta, especially having considered all of the crit items that were added higher up in these patch notes, I do wonder whether or not putting this on something like a Lux, putting this on one of the enchanters that is very powerful right now, will mean that that character is now doing enough AP on their own to be a threat, and is boosting the mage. You know, I will be interested to see the effects of this. I don't anticipate it's going to be broken. I think the numbers are pretty small, but I do think it's something to keep an eye on, something to play around with. And then finally, last but not least, let's talk about Wits End. Wits End is a... Basically, it's a lifesteal item. It's a little more complicated than that because it gives you really good lifesteal while you are below 50% of your HP. So complicated because it's an item that rewards assassin bruisers, sort of. I would say more bruisers than assassins, though assassins certainly do build it. But if you are playing something like a Riven, and you can get into the middle of the team fight, get dropped down to about half HP, and they'll be like, BAM, I'm back! That's what Riven says. This is a very useful item. But it is also attack speed, so you occasionally see it built on ranged characters. Ranged characters will get less healing out of it, substantially less. I confess I don't know the numbers on League of Legends PC, so I don't know if these are similar. But you can see that they get substantially less, 70% less healing out of it, so I expect to see this mostly as a top lane item on characters like Jax is coming to mind, who would benefit from it. That's it! They say the patch is massive, but there's more to come. And so we will find out more in the coming days. Those are the items. Those are the matchmaking updates. That's me talking about the patch for 20 minutes straight and offering my thoughts. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Those are those thoughts. Remember to hit the button. I don't know what button. I'm new to YouTube. Peace.